Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the Moms Talk Sex podcast. I'm so excited that you're here because I have the most amazing guests, and we're going to have such a sexy conversation for you. I have the beautiful Alisa here with me today, and I can't wait for you guys to meet her and hear about all the cool things she does in the world. So, how about you introduce yourself and tell everybody what it is and what you do?
Well, like you said, my name is Alisa DiLorenzo. I am a mom of two. I have a 23-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter. And I'm a mom who talks about sex quite a bit. As my husband and I have the top rated marriage podcast, One Extraordinary Marriage. I've been a marriage coach for 14 years. So I've had a lot of conversations as a mom, talking to other moms and dads about sex. So I'm super thrilled to be here and to be here with you today.
So I want to kind of dive in because I'm really curious about this. I have a lot of experts come on here. And why do you think it is that sex is such a big problem, quote unquote, when it comes to marriage?
I think there are a lot of factors. One of the biggest, I think, is all of the messaging that we, as women specifically, receive about sex when we're growing up versus what that messaging is after we get married. And I've worked with, my numbers right now, I'm somewhere around like 600, 650 couples and individuals that I've worked with. And the messaging that so many women got growing up was sex is dirty, sex is bad, don't do it, don't have it, all of this messaging, well-meaning, well-intentioned. And yet all of a sudden you get married and it's like, well, now you're supposed to love sex, want sex, be sexy, do all of the things. And our brains are going, but wait, I've had, let's say 16 to 18 years of conditioning that says don't do this.
Right.
And now I'm supposed to, and he's waiting for me. And so you have all of that. You have, I think, just a lot of pulls on a woman too, where she's like, okay, I think this is who I'm supposed to be, but maybe I don't have a lot of knowledge about that. So it's not only the messaging, but it's like, where do you get your knowledge about what it looks like to be sexually intimate outside of movies and books? There aren't a lot of communities like what you've created here where women are actually talking about it and what that looks like. And so I think with that lack of knowledge plus all of the societal pressures, I think it becomes a really hard thing in marriage. It did for me.
Yeah. And I agree with you so much. I talk about this as a form of sexual trauma, right? When we're kind of taught to disconnect from our body, and then we're expected to suddenly be this bedroom goddess, and we don't even know what it feels like to feel pleasure being in our body. So,
Mhm.
what are when would you say more women come to you or more men? Like, is this something that comes from pretty equal, or is it something that women mostly deal with?
I think because our podcast and all of the resources that we've created, our books and courses and whatnot, have always been my husband and I actually have a pretty balanced number of both men and women individually and couples together that will come and seek out marriage coaching.
I love that. I think that's really powerful because I see a lot of the self-help, quote unquote, coming usually from women,
Mm.
right? So it's really great to see that it's actually kind of balanced. So what do you guys, I would say, how did you get into this? Like, how did you choose to go this route and how did you become, you know, a marriage coach?
Yeah, I did not grow up saying, wow, when I'm, 51, I'm going to be a marriage coach and a podcaster. Our story is, I think, the story of a lot of people where you find your own dysfunction, and as you work through your dysfunction, and the challenges, you develop skills that you can then teach other people. Back in 2008, Tony and I had been married 11 going on 12 years, and we were really good roommates. We were raising our 2 and our 5-year-old, and we were barely having sex because I was just too tired and not interested. And he was, exhausted from being rejected all the time. And we were getting ready to lead a small group at our church. And he said, and this is the abridged version, he said, I think we should talk about sex in this small group. And I'm like, well, we're not having any. So I don't know what we're going to talk about. And he found this book titled Intimacy Ignited. We ended up doing that as an 8-week study, but right before we were leading the study, he said, well, hey, um, what about, 8 weeks, that's like 56 days. So if we round up, that'd be 60. What if we had sex 60 days in a row as part of leading this group? Like, do this sex challenge. And we'd heard of a couples that had done other sex challenges. And I'll tell you more, my immediate reaction with those 2 and 5-year-old and like not sleeping through the night, I was like, absolutely not. No way, dude, I am not interested in that. And the next day, I call it my come to Jesus moment where I was like, you know what, if you're not willing to try, he just wants you to make him a priority. Like,
Yeah.
like this isn't about like you having to sacrifice all the time, you know, because I had to remind myself, like when you get into it, you actually like it.
Right.
Um, and so we ended up completing 40 out of 60. And as we started to share our journey, um, people started asking, well, what's next? How do we do what you did? And that's where the podcast got launched in 2010 and the start of us writing books and teaching and coaching.
I love that. I think that's so powerful. And being in that space of, yes, something needs to change. I need to do something different. The way I'm doing it right now is not working. And I also love that you said that you noticed it wasn't him trying to get something from you. It's just him trying to reach out to you to rekindle that relationship. And I feel like so many times when guys reach out, women think it's just about the sex.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's because they're wanting that intimacy back. They're wanting that connection back.
Well, I think that's such an important point that you made there, that we can get into these patterns in our relationships where because we aren't being sexually intimate, it can feel like every overture is about having sex. But I will tell you, and I'll tell everyone listening, so often when I'm talking to men, when I'm talking to these husbands and I say, well, what is it? He's like, I crave that connection with her. I crave that attention from her because it's really the only time that like I've got her, that he wants to say 100%. He's like, but I know she's probably thinking about something else. But the vast majority of her attention is when we're sexually intimate. She's not taking care of the kids and she's not, running to, this volunteer or, that obligation or whatever. It's just the two of us. And I think sometimes, and I know this, I'm guilty of this, sometimes I can get so caught up in all the things that I have to do that I forget that my husband needs connection and he needs it in a different way than I do.
Yeah. And right, like you said, that he needs it in a different way than you do. Because on the other side of the spectrum, it's a lot of women that actually really desire that intimacy. And maybe they don't make a connection that sex is that intimacy that they require or desire, right? I think there's a disconnect there.
Well, I think, again, coming back to some of the condition, a lot of women are not taught that it's okay to desire a sexual connection. So you do have this internal struggle of this is what I want, but is it okay if I want it? And even being able to put words around it. It's why when I wrote the 6 pillars of intimacy, I defined sexual intimacy as one of the pillars because it was about giving language to these different areas of our marriage, and sexual intimacy is important. So is physical intimacy, the non-sexual touch, but being able to ask for what you want and to know what you want and be able to have those conversations as husband and wife are so powerful.
So as a woman, how do you get to that point where you feel that where you know what you want, where you know how to verbalize it or how to come about it in a way that feels empowering to you?
Well, I think first and foremost, it's recognizing this isn't just a switch that you flip and one day you've got all this vocabulary and this amazing confidence and you can just strut into your bedroom and look at your husband and say, this is what I want,
and I want it now,
and I want it now, and I want it like this. You talk about moms, and I think if every mom thinks back to like those newborn days, right? Baby can't do anything. They are learning in tiny, like microscopic increments.
mm-hmm.
And, I often use the analogy in coaching. I'm like babies don't come out into the world running. Thank God, because as a mom, we just don't know what we're doing. And so it's all of those little baby steps that turns them into adults. And it's the same thing with us building our vocabulary. It's starting with, like, look in the mirror at yourself and like, who am I? Who am I naked? Like some women don't even know who they are naked, like outside of like the 30 seconds they're in the shower. Right? Like what does bring me pleasure? I've told adults for years, I'm like, being married is the best sex ed, right? Like you're not reading about it in a book. You've got a two real life human beings. Like you can explore and figure out what feels good. It's also important, I think, for women to understand that they have permission to tell their spouse what feels good. And it
Mm.
actually leads to a better sexual experience when they are communicating either through utterances, it's okay to vocalize, or actual words, hey, that feels good. Because if he knows what feels good, guess what? You're going to get a whole lot more of what works.
Right.
And if we want more of what works, we've got to be able to tell him because I can't tell you how many men are like, I just don't know, Alisa. I don't know what she likes. And if
And
we
I
don't,
feel like, oh, I was gonna say, I feel like such a big part of that is that because we think we have to perform in a certain way, because we see maybe these things on TV, we have an idea, and then do you think that's why so many women fake orgasms? I mean, I read lately that it's like 40% of women just fake orgasms, and it blew my mind because it was like, wow, how have we gotten to a place where we're that disconnected that we're just faking it?
um, I put a statistic in Six Pillars of Intimacy that the average movie set has a cast and crew of, I think, like 274 people who make love scenes look incredible and perfect and all of this. And, the rest of the world has two people, right? Me and my husband. Um, and so you have this facade of what a perfect encounter should look like. You have the layer of, I don't know what works for me, and so I'm just going to fake it. And then you have the layer of, if a couple is disconnected, if they've been having struggles, then faking the orgasm is the quickest way to get
Mm,
things over.
yeah.
Guilty as charged. We had a whole season in our marriage where I was very guilty of faking it because we were so disconnected. That was my thought. I'm like he needs sex, he wants sex, whatever. I'm just going to get it done. But stepping into this place of saying our sexual intimacy is a tool for us to be more connected. I need to learn, as a woman, I need to learn what works for me. I need to be able to communicate that to him so that I don't have to fake it. So that I can tell him on a day, hey, if this isn't working, like I don't know I'm going to get there today. And he knows me well enough because we've had enough conversations about this that that's not a reflection on his performance. He's not taking that as I'm a failure.
Mm,
It's simply me communicating. I don't know if I'm going to get to the level of arousal that is an orgasm. So I'm going to tell you because if it feels like it's going on longer, I want to communicate that to you. And sometimes it's even just saying that I'm like, oh, okay, well, now I'm released of having to do it. And then, of course, I'm like, well, and here we are, totally aroused.
of course. Yeah, I get that. That's so interesting. And I love what you said it because when I was listening to you talking, it was like I had to learn on myself what I had, how to verbalize it, how to get there, how to pleasure myself. So you guys did a 60-day challenge. And was it after that you were like, okay, I need to do this inner work with myself also, not just with him? How did that kind of like come about? Because I feel like so many times we kind of throw stones at each other in a relationship and blame the other person for the problem instead of being like, okay, if I am in this, I've probably created it. So when did you realize that it's also you that needs to do the work?
Yeah, so making a commitment to doing a challenge like that, and we wrote a book called 7 Day Sex Challenge because I'm like, most people can't do 60 days just time-wise, but everybody can swing seven. Um, it was during that process that I started realizing that like I've contributed to the dynamic because one of the very first things that Tony said to me when we were even planning, he's like, I'm going to need you to initiate. I can't be the only one for 60 days that initiates. I'm going to need you to tell me how you're initiating. Like, I need some clues. I need you to be a participant in this. And I realized even in him saying that I had, by choice and by default, a combination of both, fallen into a place where in the course of our marriage, I had just allowed him to be the pursuer.
Yeah.
And whether or not we had sex was if I wanted to or not. instead of coming back to this place of realizing that sexual intimacy is a vital component. And so I need to be a participant and it's stepping into that. And so that started that journey that went through the 60 days and it really has continued since 2008 when we did that, where I am way more self-reflective about what the sexual intimacy looks like in our marriage than I would have been in the first 12 years.
So I'm curious, how does this look like with having children? Right? Because I mean, you did do this when your children were pretty young. And I think like sometimes it's so hard to just even find that window where you can actually, I don't know, hide in a bathroom. Like I'm super curious in terms of, 40 days. How do you make that happen with children?
So we did the challenge. Our kids were 2 and 5. They were right about to turn 3 and 6. So everybody that's like, we've got little kids, I'm like, we did it. One of the things that happened during that window with the young kids was that because we were committed to this as a team, we both started taking on more responsibility to create an environment. So if that meant that somebody was putting kids to bed, the other person was washing the dishes without grumbling about it. If it was, hey, it's nap time, what are we going to like? Somebody's setting up the room while we're putting the baby to bed. So it became a lot more teamwork in this place of working together to make this a priority and not just being in this place of, well, this is all on you. When you've got little kids, I tell people all the time, you've got to take advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves. Yes, nap time, you could do laundry and you could do groceries and you could pick up all the toys and you could do that. Or you could take 20, 30 minutes for your spouse and then both of you could go tackle all those things and you're going to do so with a smile on your face. If you've got teenagers, you've got to be a little bit more creative. But I've told people since our kids were little, we locked our bedroom door. Doesn't matter how old they are. Lock your bedroom door. You'll never have to worry about eyeballs staring at you and ruining the moment.
Yeah, I totally concur. I totally agree with that. And I love what you said because it's really become something that you're both working on together. And then there isn't that it's your fault, it's my fault. We're actually creating it together. So, what are some tips? Let's say our listeners are listening and they're like, oh, I'm going to try this. This sounds like a great idea. Yeah. Do you have some tips that make it easier or, I don't know, any tips that you can share about doing some challenge like this?
So a couple of things when it comes to doing a challenge. One is look at your calendars before you ever say yes to doing a challenge. Don't pick the week that you're vacationing with the in-laws. Don't pick the week that's got every school activity known to man. Like there's always that one week in May, if you've got kids in school where it feels like every recital, rehearsal, farewell lunch, teacher appreciation happens. So look at your calendars about that. Look at your calendar as far as when you're going to get your period, right? Like if you're pretty regular, you can block out that week and just be like, okay, this isn't going to work for us. Conversely, you can also look at the week that you generally ovulate. And let me put a little caveat. If you're not trying to make a baby, please either avoid that week or use protection. And yet, if you are like in a place where that's not an issue for you, that is the week that we as women are most receptive to our men. So being able to choose that week sets you up for success. The other part of that is looking at spicing it up, like doing different things every day, like, taking turns initiating, bringing out the lingerie again, maybe having sex in a different room or at a different time of day, bringing all of these different pieces together so that you aren't in the whole like, well, we're just going to have sex at 9:07 in our bed with the lights off for 7 days. That sounds miserable. Don't do that. Don't do that.
I love that so much. So during that challenge, what did you find out about yourself that you didn't know before when it comes to
Well, I learned that I liked my husband again because we were at a place where I didn't know that I liked him. I also learned that sexual intimacy can be an incredible catalyst for growing other areas of your marriage. When we were doing our challenge, and we've done at least one 7-day challenge every year since 2008. So that's We haven't done 2026 yet, but whatever that is, we've done a lot of challenges. Every time we do a challenge, it resets our emotional intimacy, the conversations we're having. It resets our physical intimacy, just getting back to touching one another again. Our recreational intimacy, the things that we do, we have more fun, and it's like the playful and creating memories and that type of thing. And so our challenges reset at least 4 out of 6 of the intimacies. And I think that recognizing that sexual intimacy was just the catalyst for the reset for our marriage is probably the biggest takeaway that I've had every year.
And do you feel like it affects your finances in any way?
Um, well, it's an interesting relationship with sex and finances. For a lot of women, if there is any type of financial insecurity or worry, it can be harder to be sexually intimate. And so it's even being able to have those conversations with your husband and being able to say, hey, this is why I'm struggling. Because for a lot of men, when there's a lot of stress and worry and concern, that's when they crave that connection, that you still see me, you still value me. And so it's being able to have that connection and just go, hey, how do we address this together as a team? And when couples can get in sync sexually, they often find that they've got language too to be able to get in sync financially. And those are very correlated. At least I've seen that in my coaching.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was reading about that too. Well, I noticed definitely that when we are more intimate, the money just kind of flows in. It's really interesting. So, is there like a golden rule of how many times you should have sex a week, a month, a year?
You'll find, I mean, people can research that, and I've seen all different kinds of numbers. I wish that people wouldn't look to have the number that works for everybody else.
Mhm.
I think it's really important for a couple to have the conversation, husband and wife, and say, in the season of life that we're in, because maybe they've got young kids, or maybe they've got teenagers, or maybe they're taking care of mom and dad. In the season of life that we're in, what keeps us feeling really connected in this area? And if that's 4 times a week, great. If it's 1 time a week, great. But it's something that the couple decides, and it isn't prescribed by some expert, some guru, some, TikToker, influencer, whatever. It's we've had a conversation, we're looking at our life, and we're determining what's best for us.
Yes. I love that so much. So, if our listeners want to find out more about you, your podcast, your books, how can they reach you? How can they find you?
Everything that we do is at oneextraordinarymarriage.com. And I'm sure you can find us on Instagram. You can go to our site, wherever you're listening to this podcast, whatever player you're on, search One Extraordinary Marriage. You will find us. We've got almost 900 episodes.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I love having you here. I love this conversation. I hope you guys jotted some notes because there's so many golden nuggets in here. I would just come back and re-listen and re-listen. I hope you go home and you have this conversation with your spouse and see if you want to try this challenge. And if you do, write to us and let us know. We would love to support you on your way. I hope you have amazing sex this week, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.